It's Charlton, and I'm going to try to tell this, go through these articles as best as I can. It's a long story, and it's a very difficult topic to just report on. You know, this card, and this is on a Saturday. This is breaking. I'm not sure why I did not hear about the original allegations that surfaced in June, and then since then, which was a 16-year-old who accused him of molesting him, on two separate occasions nearly 50 years ago. But since then, another person gave an interview to the New York Times and actually filed a police report, I believe, in the same county where the incident took place. Who claims that when he was 11 years old, he was molested by the cardinal. And so today, it's being reported that Pope Francis on Saturday accepted the resignation of Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, one of U.S. Catholic Church's most prominent figures who had been at the center of a widening sexual abuse scandal. He was the former bishop to Washington, D.C. from 2001 to 2006. So he's a very public official in the Catholic Church, pictured with President Bush in several, on a number of occasions, and so forth. McCarrick, 88, the former bishop of Washington, D.C., is the first cardinal in living memory to lose his red hat and title. Other cardinals who have been disciplined in sexual abuse scandals kept their membership in the College of Cardinals and their honorific Uranum Eminence. I was very shocked to read that. I had no idea that nobody else has ever lost their red hat, and he's going to go through a canonical trial, as I understand it, and there's not any criminal charges pending because the two incidents in question, and there's been other people who claim he abused them as adults, but the two in question are beyond the statute of limitations. So, but we don't know where this is going to go exactly. It's obviously a huge deal, obviously. The allegations against McCarrick, which first surfaced publicly last month, came with Francis facing an image crisis on a second front in Chile, where a growing abuse scandal has enveloped the church in Latin American country. I'm not sure what that's about, to be honest with you. A Vatican statement said the Pope ordered McCarrick's suspension from the exercise of any public ministry. This means he remains a priest, but will be allowed to say Mass only in private. Francis ordered McCarrick to go into seclusion for a life of prayer and penance until the accusations made against him are examined in regular canonical trial. McCarrick's sudden fall from grace stunned the American church because he was a widely respected leader for decades and confidant of popes and presidents. Last month, American church officials said allegations that he sexually abused a 16-year-old boy almost 50 years ago were credible and substantiated. Since then, another minor has come forward with allegations that McCarrick abused him when he was 11 years old, and several men have come forward to allege that McCarrick forced them to sleep with him at a beach house in New Jersey when they were adult seminarians studying for the priesthood. McCarrick has said that he had absolutely no recollection of the alleged abuse of the teenager 50 years ago, but has not commented on the other allegations. The New York Times reported last week that the two dioceses in New Jersey, where McCarrick served as bishop before being promoted to Washington in 2000, had reached financial settlements in 2005 and 2007 with men who said they were abused by McCarrick as adults decades ago. Some U.S. Catholics have said the Vatican should send an inspector to the United States to determine who in the U.S. church hierarchy knew of the alleged incidents and why McCarrick's rise was not impeded. Let me finish the rest of the video. I came back to this beginning. It's a really long story, and hopefully, I did okay just going through it all. He gave a statement over here. He actually, this was his statement that he gave. While I have absolutely no recollection of this reported abuse and believe in my innocence, I'm sorry for the pain the person who brought the charges has gone through, as well as for the scandal such charges cause our people, he said in a statement in June. McCarrick was also accused 3 times of sexual misconduct with adults decades ago. They go over the specific, accusations by the 16-year-old and the 11-year-old of him measuring some kind of I think it's like the robe that you wear as an altar boy, maybe. It had a specific name. I'm reluctant to even. Last week, another victim came forward and alleged McCarrick, nicknamed Uncle Ted E. Uncle Ted, he sexually abused him 2 decades beginning when he was 11 years old. That's the 11-year-old. So I'm not going to, read the actual accounts of the incidents. I think there's 2 incidents of the 16-year-old, and then there's also the 11-year-old. I mean, over here at Fox, there's this is the story about the 11-year-old. I think it's from July 20th. It's actually the AP. And there's a photo up there of, but there's no caption for the photo of McCormick at a younger age and, somebody, some kind of teenager or something, and but there's no caption. It doesn't say who it is. And so I don't even want to show it. James is the 11-year-old who doesn't identify himself, doesn't want to be identified, and talks about it, that McCarrick was a close family friend. The 88-year-old retired Archbishop of Washington, D.C. is one of the highest-ranking U.S. church officials accused of sexual abuse scandal that has seen thousands of priests implicated. I was the first guy he baptized. James said, I was his little boy. I was a special kid. I was the kid he was always that he always sought out. McCarrick, who did not immediately respond to an interview request from AP, has denied the abuse allegations that led to his removal last month by Pope Francis. The church announced June 20th that allegations were found to be credible, that McCarrick, fondled an altar boy in New York more than 40 years ago. So, in a statement issued at the time of his removal, McCarrick said, "While I have absolutely no recollection of this reported abuse and believe in my innocence, I am sorry for the pain the person who brought the charges has gone through, as well as for the scandal such charges cause our people." That's the same statement that's over here at the CNN, So that's where that comes from, that July 20th piece by the Associated Press. Sarah Rankin, I think, is her name. And again, the Patrick Noker, which is the attorney for the 16-year-old, that the James is the 11-year-old, who made the accusations against McCarrick, said in June that his client was molested twice by McCarrick, once in 1971 and then the following year. And he goes on to talk about, describe the incidents, which I'm not going to go through here. So I think, I think the attorney is representing both the 16-year-old and the 11-year-old. And as I understand, I'm just trying to piece this together. This is all news to me. I didn't hear about the, the allegations that were surfacing in June. And then since then, that was the 16-year-old. Since then, there was an allegation this week by the 11-year-old who apparently gave an interview to the New York Times. So that was basically on top of the 16-year-old's account. And I think there's other adults that have come forward as well. And the 11-year-old actually recently filed a police report that, it doesn't exactly say what was said in the police report. So the man who agreed to be identified only by his first name, James, and I don't know if this is James in this photo here. There's no caption for the photo. I'm not even going to show it and this is the 11-year-old, but the picture here looks of somebody that's more closer to like 16, but I don't know. So the man who agreed to be identified only by his first name, James, told the Associated Press he recently filed a police report detailing the abuse with the Loudoun, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, County Sheriff's Office. James, who first spoke publicly to the New York Times for a story published Thursday this week, said the abuse began. No, Thursday would have been, this is the 20th, so it would have been last week. Said the abuse began when he was a child and continued into adulthood. So, and actually, this is the New York Times article from the 19th. That's where the AP is taking the reporting on. Is the 19th article from the New York Times over at Fox. I know this has not been a good description of what's going on, but I'm just trying to piece this together. That's the picture that's there, and there is a caption here. This is a family photograph of Father McCarrick and James, the 11-year-old, in the 1970s, and he's he goes into fairly good detail of how close he was to his family. This guy McCarrick, he was considered like an uncle, and that's why he called him Uncle Teddy. I never thought about him other than Uncle Teddy. He's equal to other uncles and very much a part of our lives. When the family moved to Hillsbury, California in 1971, Father McCarrick visited repeatedly, James recalled. James had a difficult transition to his new home and was struggling in school and getting in trouble. In 1972, James asked Father McCarrick to write him a recommendation to boarding school. He did, James said. And he says, James was baptized by Father McCarrick on June 15th, 1958, 2 weeks after he was ordained priest, according to the records of Our Lady, Mount Carmel, and Tiffany, New Jersey. Tenafly, not Tiffany. So, just to clarify that, from New York Times to AP in the Fox article. So, for the 16-year-old, I'm just trying to give some chronology to it so that, you just kind of have a frame of reference for my own, too. And I'm just trying to catch up with this story here that seems to be breaking here on Saturday, McCarrick, but the 16-year-old now in his 60s, he was a student at Cathedral Preparatory and Seminary School in Queens, New York in 1971 when he was handpicked to be an altar boy for a Christmas service at St. Patrick's Cathedral, where McCarrick was a Monsignor. I think that's that's what it says over both alleged incidents. Noker said occurred at St. Patrick's Cathedral as his client was being fitted for a cassock for Christmas Mass. At the time, McCarrick was secretary to Cardinal Terence Cook, New York's top churchman. So once in 1971 and once the following year. There was actually, for the 16-year-old, they were separated by a year's time. And then, but it also, it says it's just about his quick rise through the church. McCarrick was an ordained priest in 1958 and quickly rose through the ranks in the Archdiocese of New York before being installed as Archbishop of Washington in 2001, a post he held until 2006. And that's kind of what led me to the other story of the 11-year-old, because when I was looking up pictures of President Bush, because there's a picture of President Bush and him along with Chief Justice Roberts, was just curious who else was pictured with him. That led me to the this story here. McCarrick served in about the 11-year-old who talked to the New York Times. McCarrick served as Archbishop of Washington from 2001 to 2006 and Archbishop of Newark, New Jersey for 15 years before that. As a Washington Archbishop, McCarrick was a major power broker in Vatican-U.S. relations. His ties to Washington's political elite proved crucial when Pope Francis tasked him with the delicate behind-the-scenes negotiations that helped lead to the 2014 U.S.-Cuba thaw. McCarrick also was well known in Rome, serving on a host of Vatican congregations before he retired, including the Pontifical Council for Latin America. That post would have brought him in contact with Argentine Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio. That's the future Pope Francis, who was made cardinal the same 2001 as McCarrick. In 2002, he led a delegation of the U.S. churchmen to Rome at the height of the American sex abuse scandal and vowed to pursue one strike and you're out policy that later became the U.S. Catholic bishops' norm for fighting abuse. The spokesman for the Archdiocese of Washington said in an emailed statement that the Archdiocese takes all allegations of abuse seriously and is committed to following its longstanding child protection policy. She declined to make further comment on James's allegations, as this claim did not occur at the Archdiocese of Washington. All right, you know what? That's the end of this video. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.